The slave trader's wagon rolled to a stop in front of Liam Lawson's farmhouse on a cold autumn morning, and the moment the man pulled back the canvas tarp to reveal his cargo, Liam knew the papers were forged. The girl huddled in the corner of the wagon bed was no more human than the draft horses pulling his plow, despite what the yellow documents claimed. Her skin held a faint greenish tint that no amount of dirt or shadow could disguise, and when she lifted her head to look at him with those amber eyes, he saw the small tusks jutting from her lower jaw before she quickly pressed her lips together to hide them. "Strong worker, this one," the trader said, patting the side of the wagon. "Orphan girl from the eastern provinces. Papers are all in order. 20 silver pieces and she's yours. She'll work your fields from dawn to dusk without complaint." Liam crossed his arms over his chest, studying the trader with the careful eye of a man who had spent 5 years in the king's army before returning to his family's land. The trader was thin and weasel-faced, with fingers that tapped nervously against his belt. The girl in the wagon wore a rough burlap dress that hung loose on her frame, and her hands were bound with rope. She kept her gaze down now, shoulders hunched as if trying to make herself smaller. "Eastern provinces," Liam repeated slowly. "That's Orc territory." The trader's smile flickered. "Border regions. Plenty of human settlements there. Mixed populations. You know how it is." Liam knew exactly how it was. He had fought in those border regions, had seen the burned villages and the aftermath of raids from both sides. He also knew that any legitimate slave papers from that area would have inspection seals from at least 3 different magistrates, and the document the trader was now waving at him had only one smudged stamp that looked like it had been carved from a potato. "Let me see her teeth," Liam said. The trader's eyes narrowed. "That's not necessary. The papers, if I'm buying livestock, I check their health. Let me see her teeth." The girl's head snapped up at that, and for a moment anger flashed in those amber eyes. Good, Liam thought. She had spirit left despite whatever circumstances had landed her in this wagon. The trader muttered something under his breath but gestured at the girl. "You heard him. Open your mouth." She stared at Liam for a long moment, and he could see her weighing her options. There were not many. Finally, she parted her lips just enough to show a sliver of her teeth. Even that brief glimpse confirmed what he already knew. The tusks were small but unmistakable, and her canines were slightly longer and sharper than a human's would be. "Satisfied?" the trader asked, a challenge in his voice. Liam pulled a pouch from his belt and counted out 20 silver pieces, watching the trader's eyes light up with greed and relief. "I'll take her. Leave the papers." The transaction completed quickly after that. The trader untied the rope binding the girl's wrists, practically shoved her out of the wagon, thrust the forged documents into Liam's hands, and was snapping the reins before she had even found her balance. His wagon disappeared down the dirt road in a cloud of dust, leaving Liam alone with his new purchase. They stood in silence for a moment. The girl rubbed her wrists where the rope had left red marks, her gaze fixed on the ground. Up close, there was no mistaking what she was. Her skin was definitely green, though lighter than the deep emerald of full-blooded orcs he had encountered during the war. Her hair was black and tangled, hanging past her shoulders. She was tall for a woman, probably reaching his chin, and despite her obvious malnourishment, he could see the promise of strength in her shoulders and arms. "What's your name?" he asked. She did not answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was rough from disuse. "Kara. I'm Liam. This is my farm." He gestured at the land around them, the fields that stretched toward the forest edge, the sturdy farmhouse his grandfather had built, the barn that needed repairs he kept putting off. "I know you're not human, Kara." I'm not going to turn you in or hurt you, but I need to know your story." Her jaw tightened, and for a moment he thought she might run. But where would she go? The nearest town was 15 miles south, and the forest to the north was full of dangers. "Why did you buy me if you knew?" It was a fair question. Liam had asked himself the same thing even as he was counting out the coins. Because that trader was going to sell you to someone, and the next buyer might not have been kind. And because I actually do need help with the farm. Winter's coming and there's a lot of work to be done. So you want a slave. I want a worker. There's a difference. He could see the skepticism in her eyes. "Come inside. You look like you have not eaten properly in days." She followed him into the farmhouse, moving with the cautious wariness of a wild animal entering a trap. The interior was simple but clean: a main room with a stone fireplace, a kitchen area, a table he had built himself. 2 doors led to the bedroom and a small storage room. It was not much, but it was his, bought with army wages and blood. Liam gestured for her to sit at the table while he stoked the fire and pulled out bread, cheese, and a pot of stew he had made the day before. He ladled a generous portion into a bowl and set it in front of her along with a chunk of bread. She stared at the food as if it might disappear. "Eat," he said simply, sitting down across from her with his own bowl. She fell on the food like she was starving, which she probably was. He had seen that desperation before in refugees and prisoners of war. He ate his own meal slowly, giving her space, not pressing for information. When she had cleaned her bowl and eaten 2 more pieces of bread, she finally leaned back and met his eyes. "You were a soldier," she said. It was not a question. 5 years in the border campaigns. Came home when my father died and left me this place. You killed orcs. I killed people who were trying to kill me. Some of them were orcs, yes. He kept his voice level. War is war. I did not enjoy it. She studied him with those unsettling amber eyes. My clan was attacked 6 months ago. Human raiders from one of the border militias. They killed most of the warriors, took the young women to sell. I was one of them. Liam felt a familiar anger stirring in his gut. He had heard stories about the militias, groups of men who operated in the lawless border regions, raiding both human and orc settlements for profit. The army had officially condemned them, but in practice, they were left alone as long as they primarily targeted orcs. "The trader bought you from the raiders. He bought 5 of us. I am the only one left." Her voice was flat, emotionless, but he could see the pain beneath the surface. "The others died or were sold to places I do not want to think about. He kept moving me around, trying different markets. Forged the papers after the 3rd town ran him out when someone noticed I was not human." "Why did you not try to escape?" A bitter smile crossed her face. "Escape to where? I am days of travel from any orc territory, and I would be killed on sight by most humans. At least as a slave I would be fed. Sometimes." The bleak pragmatism in her voice cut deeper than any accusation could have. She was 18 at most, maybe 19, and she had already learned to calculate survival in the narrowest terms. Liam stood and walked to the window, looking out at his fields. He had not planned on any of this when he woke up this morning. His life had been simple, lonely, but predictable. Now he had an orc girl in his kitchen and a head full of complications. "Here is what I propose," he said, turning back to face her. "You work for me. I will pay you fair wages, give you room and board. In a year, you will have enough saved to go wherever you want. Buy passage to orc lands if that is what you wish, or make a new start somewhere else." "Why would you do that?" "Because you deserve better than what happened to you, and because I really do need the help." He tried a smile. "I am not much of a farmer, truth be told. I can fight and I can fix things, but my crops are mediocre and I am always behind on the work." She stood slowly, her full height becoming apparent. "If I agree to this and you betray me, I will kill you in your sleep." That seems fair. Something that might have been the ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Show me where I will be staying." The storage room was small but had a window and enough space for a bedroll. Liam brought her blankets, a pillow, and a change of clothes that had belonged to his mother. They would be too short, but at least they were clean and warmer than the burlap dress. He left her to settle in and went outside to think. The rational part of his mind was listing all the ways this could go wrong. If anyone discovered he was harboring an orc, there would be trouble. The neighbors already kept their distance because he did not socialize much, but this would confirm their worst suspicions. And there was the matter of Kara herself. She had been through trauma he could only imagine, and trust would not come easily or quickly. But the other part of him, the part that had seen too much death and cruelty during the war, felt like he was finally doing something that mattered. He had killed in the name of king and country, following orders even when those orders sat heavy in his gut. Maybe this was a chance to balance the scales, even if only slightly. Kara emerged an hour later wearing his mother's old work dress. It reached her calves instead of her ankles, and the shoulders were tight, but it was an improvement. She had washed her face and tried to comb her hair with her fingers. Without the layer of grime, her green skin was actually quite striking, a soft jade color that reminded him of new leaves in spring. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. They spent the rest of the day working in the fields. Liam showed her how he wanted the remaining vegetables harvested and the ground prepared for winter. She learned quickly, her hands surprisingly nimble despite their size and strength. Orcs were known for their physical power, and Kara was no exception. She could lift loads that would have strained his back without apparent effort. They worked mostly in silence, but it was a comfortable quiet rather than an awkward one. When the sun began to set, they returned to the house. Liam made a simple dinner of fried potatoes and eggs while Kara sat at the table, watching him with curious eyes. "You cook your own meals," she observed. "I live alone. The alternative is starving. Orc men do not usually cook. Human men do not either in most households. But my mother insisted I learn before I joined the army, said a man should be able to take care of himself." He slid a plate in front of her. "I am glad she did. Army food was terrible." They ate together as the last light faded from the windows. Liam found himself stealing glances at her, trying to reconcile his ingrained assumptions about orcs with the reality of the person sitting across from him. She had good manners, chewing with her mouth closed despite the tusks. When she caught him looking, she raised an eyebrow. "You are staring." "Sorry, I am not used to company." "You are not what I expected either." She tilted her head. "I thought all human soldiers were cruel. Some were. Some were just scared boys trying to survive. Some were good men following bad orders." He pushed his empty plate away. "War makes everyone into something they are not proud of. You have regrets." It was not a question, but he answered anyway. "Many. I try to do better now." The first weeks established a rhythm. Kara proved to be an incredibly hard worker, throwing herself into every task with fierce determination. She repaired the barn roof faster than he could have managed alone, her strength and fearlessness at heights making quick work of it. She mended fences, cleared brush, and helped him butcher and smoke meat for winter. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire and talk, slowly learning each other's stories. Liam told her about growing up on the farm, about leaving for the army against his father's wishes, about the things he had seen in the war that still haunted his dreams. Kara spoke of her clan, the traditions and songs, the way orc society was structured around honor and strength, but also loyalty and family. She described the attack in halting words, the screams and blood, the moment she was dragged away in chains. "I should have fought harder," she said one night, staring into the fire. "Should have died with the others." "Then I would not have met you," Liam replied, "and I would still be burning dinner regularly and living in a barn that leaked whenever it rained." She turned to him with an expression he could not quite read. "You make jokes about serious things. It is better than crying about them all the time." A soft sound escaped her, something between a laugh and a sob. "Maybe." As autumn deepened into winter's approach, Liam began to notice things about Kara that had nothing to do with her strength or work ethic. The way she hummed while doing tasks, low, wordless melodies that were probably orc songs. How she always saved the crispiest pieces of bacon for him at breakfast, because she had noticed he liked them best. The surprising gentleness in her hands when she helped a bird with a broken wing, building it a small shelter and feeding it until it could fly again. He noticed the physical things too, though he tried not to. The way the firelight played across her green skin, making it seem to glow. The curve of her jaw and the fullness of her lips around those small tusks, the strength in her arms and the grace in her movements. She was beautiful in a way that was wholly foreign to him and increasingly difficult to ignore. The first snow came in early November, a light dusting that turned the farm into something ethereal and clean. Liam woke early to bank the fire and found Kara already up, standing at the window and staring out at the white world with wonder on her face. "Have you never seen snow?" he asked, coming to stand beside her. "Not like this. In the mountains there was snow, but it was hard and cold. This looks soft." "It is. Come on." He led her outside into the pre-dawn stillness. The snow was ankle-deep and still falling in fat, lazy flakes. Kara walked a few steps and then stopped, tilting her face up to the sky with her eyes closed. Snow caught in her black hair and on her eyelashes. She looked like something from a dream. Without thinking, Liam bent down, packed a loose snowball and tossed it gently at her shoulder. She gasped and spun around, eyes wide with shock. For a moment he worried he had overstepped, but then her face split into a grin, and she scooped up her own handful of snow. What followed was a brief but enthusiastic snowball fight that left them both laughing and covered in white. Liam had not laughed like that in years, the kind of laughter that came from pure joy rather than politeness. When Kara finally landed a shot that caught him square in the face, he raised his hands in surrender. "I yield. You win." She walked over, still grinning, and brushed snow from his hair with surprising tenderness. Their eyes met, and suddenly the air between them changed, became charged with something electric and dangerous. Liam could see his breath mingling with hers in the cold air. It would be so easy to close the distance, to find out if her lips were as soft as they looked. Kara stepped back abruptly, the moment broken. "We should go inside. There is work to do." They did not speak of it, but something had shifted. Liam caught her watching him sometimes when she thought he was not looking. He found himself inventing excuses to stand close to her, to let their hands brush when passing tools or plates. The tension built slowly, a drawn bowstring waiting for release. In mid-November, trouble arrived in the form of Liam's nearest neighbor, a man named Thomas Gray who lived 3 miles down the road. Thomas showed up one cold morning with suspicion written all over his weathered face. "Heard you took on a worker," Thomas said without preamble, his eyes scanning the farm. "Wanted to see if you needed any help with the harvest." "Harvest is done," Liam said carefully, "but I appreciate the offer. Where is this worker? Like to meet them." Kara chose that moment to come around the side of the house carrying an armload of firewood. She froze when she saw Thomas, and Liam watched the man's face go through several expressions in quick succession: surprise, suspicion, and then anger. That is an orc, Thomas said flatly. That is Kara, my hired help. You brought an orc onto your land. Are you insane? Thomas's hand moved to the knife at his belt. Those things are monsters. Everyone knows that. She is not a thing, Liam said, his voice hardening, and she has done nothing to threaten anyone. This is my property, and I will employ whoever I choose. Kara had set down the wood and was standing very still, her face carefully blank. Liam could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she was preparing to run or fight. It made his chest ache. Thomas spat in the snow. I am telling the others about this. Do not be surprised if you get unwelcome visitors. People around here do not take kindly to orc lovers. Then people around here can mind their own business. After Thomas left, Kara turned to Liam with fear in her eyes. You should not have defended me. It will only bring you trouble. Let it bring trouble. I meant what I said. You work for me and you are under my protection. I am not worth the cost, she said quietly. Maybe I should leave. Go north into the forest, take my chances. No. The word came out more forcefully than he intended. You are not leaving. We will handle whatever comes. Over the next few days, the atmosphere on the farm grew tense. Liam kept his old army sword close, and he noticed Kara fashioning herself a staff from a strong branch. They did not discuss what they were preparing for, but both knew it was only a matter of time. The trouble came on a gray afternoon 5 days after Thomas's visit. 6 men rode up to the farm on horseback, and Liam recognized Thomas among them, along with some other farmers from the area and 2 men he did not know who had the look of hired muscle. Liam met them in the yard with Kara standing behind him. Gentlemen, what can I do for you? One of the strangers, a big man with a scar across his cheek, spoke up. We are here about the orc. There is a bounty on escaped orc slaves. This one matches the description. She is not escaped. I bought her legally. Let me see the papers. Liam retrieved the forged documents from the house, his mind racing. The papers would not hold up to serious scrutiny, and he had known that from the start. But he was gambling that these men would not look too closely, that the appearance of legitimacy would be enough. The scarred man studied the papers for a long moment, then looked at Kara. Says here she is human. That does not look human to me. Mixed blood, Liam said smoothly. One of her grandparents was orc. It happens in the border regions. That is horseshit, Thomas interjected. That is a full orc, and you know it. The scarred man folded the papers and tucked them into his jacket. I am going to need to take her in for verification. If the papers are legitimate, she will be returned to you. If not, the bounty will be collected and she will be sold at a proper auction. She is not going anywhere, Liam said. 6 men dismounted. The scarred man sighed. Do not make this harder than it needs to be. You are one man. One veteran who has killed more people than I care to count. And if you think I will not do it again to protect what is mine, you are welcome to test that theory. Liam's hand was on his sword hilt. Behind him, he heard Kara pick up her staff. The men spread out, trying to flank them. Time seemed to slow down, and Liam's old training kicked in. He calculated angles, assessed threats, decided who would die first if this came to violence. Wait. Kara's voice cut through the tension. Do not do this. Do not fight for me. Kara, I will not let you die for me. She stepped forward past Liam, her staff held loosely at her side. If you want me, come and take me. But know that I will not go easily, and some of you will not leave this farm. The scarred man laughed. Big talk for a girl. I am orc, Kara said simply. We are taught to fight from the time we can walk. You think because I am young and female that I am weak. You are wrong. One of the hired muscle made the mistake of rushing her. Kara moved like water, spinning away from his grab and bringing her staff around in a brutal arc that caught him in the knee. The crack of breaking bone was loud in the cold air. He went down screaming. The yard exploded into chaos. Liam drew his sword and engaged the scarred man while Kara held off two others with her staff. Thomas and the remaining farmers hung back, clearly having second thoughts about the wisdom of this venture. Liam had not fought like this since the war, but muscle memory was a powerful thing. He parried a wild slash, stepped inside the man's guard, and drove his pommel into the scarred man's face. Bone crunched. The man staggered back, blood pouring from his broken nose. Kara was a revelation. Her staff was a blur of motion, cracking against ribs and heads with devastating precision. The orcs did not just teach their children to fight, Liam realized. They taught them to win. Within moments, 3 men were on the ground groaning and the others were backing away. "Enough," Thomas shouted. "This is not worth it. Let us go." They retreated to their horses, dragging their wounded companions. The scarred man pointed at Liam with a bloody hand. "This is not over. The magistrate will hear about this." "You tell the magistrate that 6 men came onto my property to steal my legal worker, and I defended my rights," Liam called back. "Tell him I would be happy to make a formal complaint about bounty hunters operating without proper warrants." They rode off, leaving Liam and Kara alone in the churned snow of the yard. Liam's heart was pounding, adrenaline still flooding his system. He turned to Kara and saw that she was shaking. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No, I thought they would kill you." He reached out without thinking and pulled her into his arms. She came willingly, her face pressing against his shoulder. He could feel her trembling, the fear and relief mixing together. His own hands were not entirely steady as he held her. "I told you," he said quietly. "You are under my protection. I meant it." She pulled back enough to look at him, and there were tears on her green cheeks. "Why? Why would you risk so much for me?" The question hung between them, demanding honesty. Liam took a breath and spoke the truth that had been growing in his heart for weeks. "Because you matter to me, because I care about you, more than I should, probably." Kara's eyes widened. "You are human, I noticed. I am orc, I noticed that too. This is impossible, probably." He raised a hand and gently brushed away her tears. "But here we are anyway." She kissed him. It was sudden and fierce, her hands fisting in his shirt as she pulled him down to her level. The tusks made it slightly awkward at first, but they figured it out quickly enough, mouths moving together with desperate hunger. Liam wrapped his arms around her waist, holding her close, dizzy with want and wonder. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kara looked as stunned as he felt. "I have wanted to do that for weeks," she admitted. "Why did you not?" "Because I was afraid. Because I thought you could not possibly want someone like me." Liam laughed, though it came out shaky. "Kara, I have been half in love with you since you threw that snowball at my face. Half in love, maybe more than half." She kissed him again, softer this time, and it felt like coming home. When they went inside, it was hand in hand, a line crossed that could not be uncrossed. They sat by the fire and talked for hours, finally acknowledging the feelings that had been building between them. Kara curled against his side, her head on his shoulder, fitting there like she was made for that space. "What happens now?" she asked eventually. "Thomas will spread word. Others will come. Then we will deal with them, together. You could be arrested for harboring an illegal orc. The papers say you are human, mixed blood but human. Let them prove otherwise." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "And if worst comes to worst, we will leave. Go somewhere no one knows us. Start fresh. You would give up your farm. It is just land. You are," he paused, searching for the right words, "you are the first thing in years that has made me want to live instead of just survive." She turned in his arms to face him fully, her amber eyes bright with unshed tears. "I love you. I did not think I was allowed to, but I do." "You are allowed anything you want," he said fiercely. "You are free, Kara, not just because I say so, but because you were always free. That traitor, those men today, they had no right to you. No one does except yourself." "I choose you," she whispered. "If you will have me." His answer was a kiss that said everything words could not. That night, Kara moved her bedroll from the storage room to his bedroom. They lay together in the darkness, wrapped in each other's arms, learning the geography of this new territory they had entered. Liam traced the line of her jaw, the point of her ear, the curve of her tusk. She ran her fingers through his hair, across the old scars on his shoulder from a battle wound that had almost killed him. "You are beautiful," he told her, meaning it completely. "You are strange," she replied, but she was smiling. "But I love you anyway." They made love slowly, carefully, mapping each other with hands and mouths. There was awkwardness at first, the natural fumbling of new lovers, but beneath that was a tenderness that took Liam's breath away. Kara was strong and sure, but also vulnerable in a way she rarely allowed herself to be. He held her after, her green skin luminous in the moonlight streaming through the window, and felt something in his chest settle into place. Winter came in earnest after that. They were snowed in for days at a time, but neither minded. The isolation gave them freedom to simply exist together without fear of judgment. They cooked together, worked on indoor projects, and spent long hours by the fire talking or sitting in comfortable silence. Kara taught him words in the orc language, harsh and guttural sounds that felt strange in his mouth. He taught her to read, painstakingly going through the few books he owned. "Why did you never learn before?" he asked one evening as she struggled with a particularly complex passage. "Orcs do not have much use for reading. Our stories are spoken, passed down generation to generation. Reading is a human thing. Does it bother you, learning human ways?" She considered this. "No, I will always be orc, but I can be orc who knows human things too. The two do not have to be separate." She looked at him seriously. "You have never asked me to be anything other than what I am. That is rare." He kissed her forehead. "You are perfect exactly as you are." As the deepest part of winter set in, Liam found himself thinking about the future in ways he had not allowed himself to before. He imagined springs and summers with Kara, years stretching ahead of them. He imagined children, wondered what they would look like with his human features and her orcish heritage. The thoughts terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. One particularly cold night in January, as they lay wrapped in every blanket they owned, Kara spoke into the darkness. "Do you ever regret it, taking me in, keeping me?" "Never, not once. Even though it has complicated your life, my life needed complicating. It was too simple, too empty before you." He pulled her closer, feeling her warmth against his skin. "You gave me a reason to care again. To want more than just getting through each day." "I was so angry when I was in that wagon," she said quietly. "Angry at the raiders, angry at fate, angry at myself for surviving when others did not. I wanted to die. Then you bought me, and you were kind when you had no reason to be. You saw me as a person, not a thing. That changed something. You are the bravest person I know." She laughed softly. "I am terrified most of the time. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is doing what needs to be done despite the fear." He had learned that lesson in the war, watching young soldiers force themselves forward into almost certain death because their comrades depended on them. You wake up every day in a world that hates you and you live anyway. That is courage. They held each other as the wind howled outside, snow piling against the walls. Whatever came next, they would face it together. That certainty was the warmest thing in the cold winter night. Spring arrived slowly, the snow melting away to reveal the muddy promise of new growth. Liam and Kara began preparing the fields for planting, working side by side in the weak sunshine. The world felt full of possibility in a way it had not before. In late March they had visitors. Liam saw them coming from a distance and tensed, but Kara touched his arm gently. "Wait. Look at their banner." A white flag fluttered from a pole carried by the lead rider. 3 travelers approached on horseback, and as they drew closer, Liam realized one of them was a woman wearing the robes of a magistrate. The other 2 were guards, but they kept their weapons sheathed. The magistrate was a middle-aged woman with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes. She dismounted and approached them with brisk efficiency. "Liam Lawson, that is me. I am Magistrate Helena Frost. I am here about reports of an illegal orc on your property." Liam's hand moved toward his sword, but Kara caught his wrist. "Let her speak," she murmured. Magistrate Frost pulled out papers from her saddlebag, and Liam recognized the forged documents. "These papers are fake. You know it, I know it, and the men who came here to collect bounty know it." "Then why the white flag?" Liam asked cautiously. "Because I spent the last 3 months investigating the slave trade running through our province, and what I found disgusted me. Human raiders attacking orc villages, forging papers, selling people like cattle while the local authorities look the other way." She fixed him with a stern look. "That is going to stop. I have convinced the provincial governor to crack down on it. Several traders have been arrested, including the man who sold this girl to you." Kara stiffened. "What does this mean for me? Normally, an orc found with forged papers would be detained, but your case is complicated. You were kidnapped, enslaved illegally, and trafficked across provincial lines. Under the law, that makes you a victim, not a criminal." Magistrate Frost pulled out a different set of papers. "These are legitimate identification documents. They classify you as a refugee and grant you legal residency in this province. You are free to stay, free to work, free to live your life." Kara took the papers with shaking hands, staring at them as if they might disappear. "I do not understand. Why would you do this?" "Because the law is supposed to protect people, all people, not just the powerful ones. What happened to you was wrong." The magistrate turned to Liam. "I also heard about the fight in your yard. 6 armed men trying to abduct a young woman. You had every right to defend your property and employee. No charges will be filed against you." Relief washed through Liam so suddenly his knees felt weak. "Thank you. Do not thank me. Just be careful. My jurisdiction only extends so far, and there are plenty of people who will not like this decision." She remounted her horse. "But you have the law on your side now. Use it." After the magistrate left, Kara stood holding her papers and crying. They were tears of relief and disbelief and hope all mixed together. Liam wrapped his arms around her and let her sob into his chest, his own eyes burning. "You are real," she kept saying. "You are really real. This is not a dream. It is real. You are free. You have papers that say so." She pulled back to look at him, face wet with tears but smiling more broadly than he had ever seen. "I am free." "You are," she laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. They spun around the muddy yard like children, whooping and laughing, not caring how foolish they looked. After everything, after all the fear and uncertainty, there was this: legal protection, a chance at a real future, hope. That night they celebrated with a special dinner, the last of the smoked ham from winter and vegetables Liam had preserved. They talked late into the night about plans for the farm, for the summer planting, for everything that now seemed possible. "Will you stay?" Liam asked, though his heart was pounding. Now that she was legally free, truly free, she could go anywhere. "You do not have to. You could travel, find other orcs, rebuild your life however you want." Kara took his hands in hers. "I want to stay. This is my home now. You are my home. Are you sure? You are not bound to me anymore, not by slavery or necessity." "I am bound to you by choice. That is stronger than any chains." She leaned forward and kissed him softly. "Ask me properly, Liam," his breath caught. "What? Ask me what you want to ask me. I can see it in your eyes." Liam had been turning the idea over in his mind for weeks, but had not allowed himself to voice it. Now, with her looking at him with those amber eyes full of love and hope, he found his courage. He stood and pulled her to her feet, taking both her hands. "Kara, I know we come from different worlds. I know there will be people who judge us, who say what we have is wrong, but I do not care. You have made me happier than I ever thought possible. You have given me purpose and joy and love. I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life." He took a shaky breath. "Will you marry me?" Her smile could have lit the entire room. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They kissed, and it felt like sealing a promise that went beyond words. When they finally broke apart, Kara was laughing and crying at the same time. "We will have to have 2 ceremonies. One in human tradition, one in orc tradition. My people marry by exchanging blades and blood oaths. Then we will do both. I will marry you in every tradition ever invented if that is what you want." They planned the wedding for the summer, after the planting was done. News of their engagement spread through the neighboring farms, and reaction was mixed. Some of the farmers made it clear they wanted nothing to do with Liam anymore, but others, to his surprise, were cautiously supportive. An elderly woman named Margaret who lived 2 miles east brought them a wedding gift, a beautiful quilt she had made herself. "My grandson fought in the border wars," she told them as she pressed the quilt into Kara's hands. "He told me that orcs are not monsters. He said they were just people trying to protect their homes, same as us. I did not believe him then, but I think maybe he was right." Kara hugged the old woman, who seemed startled but pleased by the affection. After Margaret left, Kara folded the quilt carefully and placed it on their bed. "There is kindness in the world," she said softly. "I had almost forgotten." The crops came in strong that year, the best harvest Liam had ever seen. Kara's strength and tireless work ethic made all the difference, but more than that, he simply cared more about the farm now. It was not just his anymore. It was theirs, a future they were building together. In late July, they held the human ceremony. It was small, just a few neighbors and the magistrate who had given Kara her freedom. They spoke their vows in front of the fireplace in the farmhouse, Liam in his best clothes and Kara in a simple white dress they had ordered from town. She looked radiant, her green skin glowing in the afternoon light, flowers woven into her black hair. "I take you as my wife," Liam said, his voice steady despite the emotion churning in his chest. "I promise to protect you, to honor you, to love you for all my days. You are my heart." "I take you as my husband," Kara replied. "I promise to stand beside you, to share your burdens, to love you with all that I am. You are my home." They exchanged simple rings Liam had made himself from silver coins, melted down and hammered into bands. When the magistrate pronounced them married and told him to kiss his bride, Liam did so with joy, not caring who was watching or what they thought. The orc ceremony happened the next day, just the 2 of them in the forest. Kara had crafted 2 knives, simple but well made, the blades razor sharp. She explained the ritual carefully. They would exchange the knives, cut their palms and press the wounds together, mingling their blood while speaking the oath. "In my culture, this is the deepest bond," she said seriously. "Blood to blood, life to life. It cannot be broken except by death." "I understand." They performed the ceremony in a small clearing as the sun set through the trees. Kara spoke the oath in her native tongue first, the words harsh and beautiful at once, then translated. "I bind myself to you in blood and bone. Your enemies are my enemies. Your joys are my joys. Your pain is my pain. Until the last breath leaves my body, I am yours." Liam repeated the oath, stumbling slightly over the Orcish pronunciation, but Kara's encouraging smile told him he was doing fine. When they pressed their bleeding palms together, he felt a strange sense of rightness, as if something fundamental had clicked into place in the universe. They wrapped their hands together and sat in the clearing until full dark, just being together in the quiet of the forest. When they finally returned to the farmhouse, they were married in two traditions, bound by law and blood and love. The rest of the summer passed in a golden haze. They worked the farm together, sold their excess harvest at market, and slowly began to be accepted by the community. It helped that Kara was unfailingly polite and helpful, volunteering to assist any neighbor who needed heavy labor done. She won over even some of the skeptical farmers with her strength and good humor. In early autumn, Kara started feeling ill in the mornings. At first they thought it was something she ate, but when the nausea continued for weeks, a different possibility emerged. Liam rode into town and returned with a midwife, an older woman who examined Kara and then smiled broadly. "Congratulations. You are going to be parents." The news hit them both like lightning. Liam felt terror and elation in equal measure. Kara cried happy tears and then immediately started worrying about all the things that could go wrong. But beneath the fear was a deep, fundamental joy. "A baby," Liam kept saying, unable to quite process it. "We are going to have a baby." "Half orc, half human," Kara said, her hand on her still flat belly. "I do not know what that will look like. Beautiful, like their mother." The pregnancy progressed normally, though Kara remained strong and active far longer than human women typically could. She worked the fields almost until her due date in early spring, refusing to be treated as fragile. When the labor finally came, it was long and difficult. Liam held her hand through it all, wiping her forehead, giving her water, feeling utterly helpless in the face of her pain. When their daughter was finally born, the midwife wrapped her in a blanket and placed her in Kara's arms. Liam looked at his child and felt his heart expand beyond what he thought possible. She had Kara's green skin, though lighter than her mother's, more like sea foam. She had tiny tusks just beginning to emerge and pointed ears and her father's dark hair. She was perfect. "What should we name her?" Kara asked, exhausted but radiant. Liam had been thinking about this. "Luna, after my mother. Luna." Kara tested the name and smiled. "It is beautiful." Luna Lawson. They lay together in the bed, Luna sleeping peacefully between them, and Liam felt a contentment so complete it was almost painful. This was what life was supposed to be. Not fighting, not killing, not just surviving day to day. This. Love and family and hope for the future. The months after Luna's birth were chaotic and exhausting and wonderful. She was a healthy, hungry baby who seemed to inherit her mother's strength. By 6 months, she was already pulling herself up and trying to stand. Kara said that was normal for orc children, who developed faster than human babies. Liam threw himself into fatherhood with the same determination he brought to everything else. He built a cradle that rocked gently, sewed tiny clothes, and spent hours walking Luna around the farm when she could not sleep. Neighbors came to visit, and even those who had been skeptical about the marriage softened when they saw the little family. Margaret the quilter became an unofficial grandmother, visiting regularly with gifts and advice. "That baby is blessed," she told them. "She has the best of both worlds in her." As Luna grew into a toddler, bright and curious and fearless, Liam watched Kara blossom into motherhood. She sang Luna the songs of her lost clan, taught her words in the orc language, told her stories of heroes and warriors. But she also taught her gentleness and compassion, lessons Kara herself had learned through pain. "I want her to be proud of both sides of herself," Kara told Liam one evening as they watched Luna play in the yard, chasing fireflies in the summer dusk. I want her to never feel like she has to choose. She will not. We will make sure of that. They built a life that was not always easy but was rich with love. The farm prospered. Their family grew. And though there were still those who looked at them with suspicion or disdain, there were more and more who saw them for what they were. People trying to build something good in a world that desperately needed more goodness. On their 5th anniversary, Liam and Kara took Luna and rode out to the clearing where they had performed the orc marriage ceremony. Luna ran around collecting flowers while her parents sat on a fallen log, hands intertwined. "You ever regret it?" Liam asked. "Not going back to orc lands, not searching for what was left of your clan." Kara watched their daughter, who was now trying to climb a tree with determined concentration. "Sometimes I wonder what happened to the survivors, if there were any. If I have cousins or distant family somewhere in the mountains, but regret? No, never." She turned to face him. "You gave me a life when I thought mine was over. You gave me love when I thought I was unworthy of it. You gave me our daughter. How could I regret any of that? I was so lonely before you came. I did not even realize how lonely until I was not anymore. We saved each other, I think. You saved me. I just bought you." She laughed and swatted his arm. "You did more than buy me. You saw me. That was the first gift you gave me, and it was worth more than gold." Luna came running back with a fistful of wildflowers, her small tusks visible when she grinned. "Mama, Papa, look." They admired her collection and helped her weave some of the flowers into her hair. She giggled and squirmed, and Liam felt that familiar sense of overwhelming gratitude. Against all odds, against prejudice and fear and the cruelties of a harsh world, they had built this. A family. A home. A love that transcended the boundaries others tried to place on it. As the sun set and they rode back to the farmhouse, Luna falling asleep in her mother's arms, Liam looked at his wife and daughter and knew that everything he had been through, all the pain and loss and struggle, had led him here. To this moment. To this life. And it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. Years continued to pass, each season bringing new challenges and joys. Luna grew into a bright, strong child who was as comfortable working the fields as she was reading the books Liam taught her from. She had her mother's determination and her father's thoughtfulness, and she moved through the world with a confidence neither of her parents had possessed at her age. When Luna was 7, Kara gave birth to a son they named Lars. He had more human features than his sister, with only a slight green tint to his skin and smaller tusks, but he had his mother's amber eyes and strength. The farm rang with children's laughter, a sound that Liam never tired of hearing. The community had fully accepted them by then. Liam was elected to serve on the local council, representing the farmers in the Eastern District. Kara became known as the person to call when something needed lifting, fixing, or harvesting quickly. She had a reputation for fair dealing and honest work that transcended the prejudices about her heritage. On Luna's 10th birthday, as they celebrated with cake and neighbors gathered around, Liam caught Kara's eye across the crowded farmhouse. She smiled at him, and in that smile was everything they had built together. From that first day when he had known immediately that she was not human and bought her anyway, to this moment surrounded by family and friends, it had been a journey neither could have predicted. That night, after the guests left and the children were asleep, Liam and Kara sat on the porch watching the stars. She leaned against his shoulder, her hand in his, and spoke softly. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me that day. For being brave enough to care when it would have been easier not to. For giving me this life." "You gave me this life," he corrected. "I was just existing before you. You made me live again." They sat in comfortable silence, the sound of crickets filling the air. Inside, their children slept safely. Around them, the farm they had built together stretched into the darkness. It was not a perfect life, but it was theirs, earned through courage and love and the simple decision to treat each other with kindness when the world said they were supposed to be enemies. Liam thought back to the man he had been that autumn morning when the trader's wagon rolled up. He had been lonely, adrift, going through the motions of living without truly engaging with life. He had seen an orc girl with forged papers and made a choice that changed everything. Not to save her, though he had done that. Not to be a hero, though perhaps he had been one in his own small way. But simply to see her as a person deserving of dignity and respect. From that single choice had grown everything else. Love, family, purpose, joy. A life worth living instead of just enduring. And now, sitting here with Kara's warmth against his side and the knowledge that their children slept peacefully nearby, Liam understood what he had really bought that day. Not a worker, not a slave, but a chance at happiness, a door into a better future, a partner for the journey ahead. "I love you," he said, because some things never got old to say. "I love you too," she replied, and that was all that needed to be said. They went inside as the night grew cold, checking on the children one last time before retreating to their own room. In the morning there would be work to do, fields to tend, animals to feed, all the endless tasks of farm life. But for now, there was just this. Two people who had found each other against impossible odds, who had built something beautiful from the wreckage of their pasts, who had chosen love when hate would have been easier. The farmer who knew immediately that the papers were forged. The orc girl who had been sold as human. They had both been broken in different ways, but together they had become whole. And in the years to come, as their children grew and had children of their own, the story of how their family began would be told and retold. A story about courage and kindness, about seeing beyond prejudice to the person underneath, about love that refused to be bound by the arbitrary rules of a fearful world. It was not a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. And in a farmhouse in a small frontier province, surrounded by the people they loved most, Liam and Kara lived not just happily, but fully, richly, and well. Together, they had found what so many search for and never find: a place to belong, a person to belong with, and the knowledge that they had made the world just a little bit better by refusing to accept that they were supposed to be enemies. Instead, they chose to be something the world needed more of. They chose to be family. And that choice, made and remade every single day, was the truest magic of all.